Samuel Beckett once said, "Ever tried, ever failed. No matter. Try again, fail better." Beckett's words might sound like poetry, but to creatives, they feel more like a manifesto. Risk, failure, repetition, reinvention. It's the creative process and the absolute story. When Absolut launched internationally in 1979, exactly 100 years after its first Swedish release, instead of fitting into the vodka category, it stood completely apart from it. It broke every rule. Liquor bottles back then followed a formula: tall, thin necks, long labels, metals, and Russian heritage. Some grainy photo of a glacier or a man with a beard. That was vodka. But Absolut had none of that. It looked like something off a chemist's shelf. A short, rounded bottle, inspired by antique Swedish apothecary jars. No label, no metals, just clean, modern typography. And a name that looked unfinished. Absolut, without the E. The whole thing felt wrong. Consumers were confused. Focus groups hated it. Buyers and industry experts called it a mistake and said it would fail. The bottle looked strange and the name made no sense. It didn't speak luxury. It didn't speak heritage. In fact, it barely spoke at all. But that silence, that lack of noise, was the point. It was confident enough not to shout. But to Michel Roux, who was handling US distribution, it was something else entirely. It was different. He didn't try to explain it. He just put the bottle where culture was already happening and where people paid attention. New York bars, art circles, and even Studio 54. And it worked. A weird little Swedish bottle became the drink of artists, musicians, and downtown thinkers. Absolut became not just a vodka, but a statement. When it came time to advertise, they didn't reach out to the usual big ad agencies. They gave it to a small young agency in New York called TBWA. They saw the weirdness not as a weakness, but a strength. They leaned in, and together they launched one of the most iconic ad campaigns of all time. The first ad appeared in 1980. A single bottle, plain background, faint halo above the cap, and 2 words: Absolut perfection. No actors, no vodka trivia, no sales pitch. It didn't sell the product, it sold the feeling. Minimal, clever, clean. The ad was unlike anything else, and people noticed. And that became their signature. Each new ad featured the bottle, but reimagined in endless creative ways. Artists and designers started paying attention. And so did Andy Warhol. He'd discovered the vodka at Studio 54 and even used it as cologne. In 1985, he painted the bottle in his own style. Dark, layered, reflective. It was meant to hang in the brand's office, but instead, they ran it as an ad, which became a major turning point for Absolut. Absolut wasn't just using artists, it was collaborating with them. Warhol didn't do another one, and instead he suggested someone new, Keith Haring, a graffiti artist from the streets and subways of Brooklyn. Haring was still unknown, but Absolut gave him a canvas and full freedom to interpret the bottle his way. The result? Haring's career exploded, and the campaign became legendary. From there, it snowballed. Damien Hirst, Rosemarie Trockle, Kenny Scharf, Louise Bourgeois. Fashion designers, sculptors, illustrators, musicians all put their stamp on the bottle. Absolut wasn't just selling vodka anymore, it was curating culture. Absolut LA became a pool. Absolut Manhattan lit up the skyline. Absolut Hitchcock told a whole story in one image. It took risks others wouldn't, like being the first mass-market brand to advertise in a gay magazine, The Advocate, in 1981. Not as a token gesture, but because it reflected who was drinking it and who was making it. Each campaign celebrated art, diversity, and reinvention, always anchored in that now iconic bottle shape. The world changed, the media changed, but Absolut never stopped evolving. And all of it, the artists, the ads, the risks, it came from that one decision, to take the thing that made them wrong and call it perfect. But this story isn't just about vodka. For me, it was the first time advertising didn't feel like advertising. I first saw an Absolut campaign when I was studying graphic design, and at first, I didn't really get it. A bottle on a blank background? 2 words of copy, that was it. But the more I looked into the campaign and saw the work from all corners of the globe, the more it revealed. Each ad was like a tiny poster exhibition. Each one said something clever or unexpected or beautifully weird, and the simplicity that made everything else feel loud and forced. I found myself making my own versions for a graphics project, where I took a recent trip to Mexico as my muse and Absolute as my brand. And this is the result. After a 2-week holiday of sipping Coronas and margaritas, eating my share of tacos and churros, playing water polo at the hotel, sunbathing by the pool, or taking trips to local Aztec temples, I came back with a plan. With all the photos I took during my time away, I went through them and picked my favorite ones, before starting to edit them and play around with them, seeing what I could create. As I was still learning the ropes of graphic design and Photoshop, my work was, let's say, experimental. But I took those edits and a stencil I had made to create my final mood boards before taking on the challenge of designing the bottle. Alongside this, I created a more simple and modern version of the bottle, which was more likely to sit on a shelf, just so I could compare my work and see what else I could come up with. The younger version of me was admittedly in an overcomplicated phase, layer enthusiastic, bright colors, and not an ounce of care in the world for blank space. Even so, I decided to send my finished work off to Absolute. Unfortunately, a free bottle was not sent my way, but a letter of appreciation and praise was, which I took as a nod of approval in changing my career path. The enjoyment of taking the word absolute and pairing it to endless possibilities was enough to spark an interest in advertising and a passion to do things differently. For me, it was the first time I realized advertising could be art, not just selling, but storytelling. Not persuasion, but provocation. That was my turning point. That was the moment design became direction, and I started to see a career in advertising not as a job, but as something I would love. So, let's bring it full circle. Back then, Warhol used paint, Haring used chalk. Today we've got something else, AI. My challenge to you is to create your own ChatGPT generated absolute ad. Pick your muse. It could be a place, a person, a mood, or even your morning coffee. Write your 2-word absolute headline, then use AI to create the ad image and the copy. I'll give you till the end of this call. But obviously, I need to entice you into this little challenge. So the best design in the chat will win a pack of chocolate digestives, or should I say, absolute digestives. It could be clever, it could be abstract, or it could be beautifully dumb. The choice is yours. Let the perfection begin.